is Thursday, the 14th or something of August 2025, and this is a quick update about the state of the war between Israel and Hamas happening in Gaza and the political fallout of the current state of affairs. Uh, what is happening with the United Kingdom, Great Britain, and its Prime Minister saying that he would recognize a state of Palestine come September unless Israel does find a way to stop the fighting, which is crazy because the only people who don't want to stop the fighting are Hamas and do other things to alleviate the suffering of the Gazan people, which again is being caused by Hamas, who don't want the suffering of the Palestinian in Gaza to stop. The more they cause them to suffer, the more idiots like Prime Minister Starmer think, oh, we should reward the terrorists and recognize the state of Palestine. And the same thing is happening with the Prime Minister Albanese in Australia, who said basically the same thing, and the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, who is a Qatari shill at this point, who has not only promised to recognize the state of Palestine in September, but also he has begun in the last 6 months to deny the renewal of visas of El Al security agents. If you're not familiar, El Al is Israel's airline, and like national carrier airline, at least the main one, and they have security agents at all of the gates in all of the airports where they service flights around the world. The reason for that is because El Al is a frequent target of terrorists. And so to make sure that the flights are safe, they've always had security, their own security, at these gates in different terminals around the world. And for whatever reasons, we know what they are, they're obviously political. The president of France has taken it upon himself to say, nope, we're not going to renew the visas of Israeli security agents who are there to protect the lives of passengers, whatever their race, religion, creed, or national identity, or gender, or whatever it might be. By the way, many so-called Palestinians fly on El Al when they come to Israel. So he's actually jeopardizing their lives too. And the only reason he would do this is for political reasons, to satisfy his friends in Qatar and the like. So shame on you, Emmanuel Macron. Shame and eternal shame for putting the lives of travelers at greater risk for no reason. By the way, one of the greatest ever anti-terrorist operations of all time in history was the raid at Entebbe airport in Entebbe, Uganda, when, of all things, a French air carrier, Air France, the French national airline, took off from Ben Gurion Airport, and on board were some hostages, some kidnappers who were terrorists from the Bader Meinhof group, the German terrorist group and pro-Palestinian terrorists, and they took the entire plane to Uganda, where it sat until the Israelis performed an amazing rescue operation. And the only Israeli soldier that died was Yonatan Netanyahu, Bibi Netanyahu's brother. He was the commander of the operation on the ground. And about 4 hostages died. One of them was a lady who had been taken to a hospital, who mysteriously died in the hospital in Uganda. The other 3 were killed in action during the rescue. But the other hundreds of, more than 100, or so hostages were rescued by the Israeli special forces and brought back to Israel unharmed. And it is an amazing feat of anti-terrorism, and that happened on July 4th, 1976, of all days, America's bicentennial. And that was, again, a French national aircraft that took off from the Israeli Ben Gurion airport. And it was Israeli commandos, not French ones, but Israeli ones, who rescued the hostages. So this is a bit of a historical slap to the face by France against Israel, who earlier this year put up black veils, essentially, black curtains or whatever, around the Israeli exhibition booths at the Paris Air Show, which is the big industrial air show for the aircraft and space, and missile technology and Air Force technology industry. It happens at in a place next to Paris, Le Bourget. And part of the reason that happened, the political excuse, was of course to protest the Israeli use of force in Gaza. But the real reason is because France is butthurt that Israel keeps kicking butt in its military exports compared to the French, who also have a very respectable amount of exports with their military goods and services. And Israel is a growing power in that field, and France does not like the fact that Israel is eating up so much of its market share. Well, France, you should do a better job if you want to sell more stuff than the Israelis are selling right now. So this is a kind of a subtle, nuanced way for the French president to make his political point with the ever-growing number of radical Islamists who live in France and who are probably inevitably going to, unfortunately, take over France. And at the same time, it's a way for him to hit Israel economically in some way. So it has all the hallmarks of him doing the bidding of his masters in Qatar. And I say his masters because he's very clearly on the take from Qatar, allegedly, and other countries who don't want to see a genuine peace between Israel and the people of Gaza and Judeans, the Arabs of Judea and Samaria. So all of this means that these, frankly, political numbnuts and midwits in the UK and in Australia and in France and elsewhere, but especially those very important countries, they have no guts. They're not willing to stand up for what is morally right against what is morally wrong. They want to literally reward the terrorists who committed the atrocities of October 7th by declaring a state of Palestine. Of course, it is symbolic in that it's practically meaningless, because so what? They can declare it all they want. Factually on the ground, nothing will change, right? And yes, they can do little sanctions here and there and make it, a little bit economically harder for people in Israel. But generally speaking, the Israeli economy is still very strong and growing. Not for everyone. Yes, there's a lot of people who are not doing well in Israel. But generally speaking, the economy is growing and it's flourishing, as it always does. I see you. Hello. Hey, Yasha. It's Griffin from Trading. Hello. Hi there. Good to see you. I actually have to get going now, but I will continue this hopefully in another 15 minutes or so. Peace.